just a bit, the fact that he'd never gained any weight. His dark hair had thinned and was streaked with gray, which only added a look of dignity to his appearance. Of all the women he dated during college, he'd fallen in love with her. Theirs hadn't been an easy courtship, though. They'd broken up for more than a year and then reunited. Once they were back together, they realized how much they loved each other. There'd been no uncertainty about their feelings. They were married shortly after graduation, and their love had endured through trials and tribulations, through good years and bad. They'd had plenty of both.
"Talk about what?"
Roy asked casually. His nonchalance didn't fool Corrie. Her husband knew exactly what was on her mind. "Does the past has a way of catching up with the present tell you anything?" she murmured, sitting down in the chair normally reserved for clients. She wanted Roy to understand that she wouldn't be put off easily. She was afraid he knew more about these postcards than he'd let on. It would be just like him to try to protect her. Roy frowned.
"Those messages don't have anything to do with you, so don't worry about it."
His answer infuriated her. "How can you say that? Everything that happens to you affects me." He seemed about to argue, but after all these years he recognized that she wasn't going to be satisfied with glib reassurances.
"I'm not sure what to tell you. I've made enemies, and yes, I have regrets, but who doesn't?"
Roy had reached the rank of detective for the Seattle Police Department and been forced into early retirement because of a back injury. In the beginning, Corrie had been excited to have her husband at home. She'd hoped they'd be able to travel and do some of the things they'd always planned, but it hadn't worked out that way. Roy had the time now, but their finances had been adversely affected when he'd had to take early retirement. Their income was less than it had been by at least 20%. In a money-saving effort, they'd moved from Seattle and across Puget Sound to the community of Cedar Cove. The cost of property was much more reasonable in Kitsap County, which also offered a slower pace of life. When the real estate agent showed them the house at 50 Harbor Street, with its wide front porch and sweeping view of the cove and lighthouse, Corrie knew immediately that this house and this town would become their home. They'd moved from the big city, and it hadn't been as much of an adjustment as Corrie had feared. Folks in town were pleasant, and Roy and Corrie had made a few good friends, notably the Beldens, but kept mostly to themselves. They knew their neighbors' names and exchanged greetings, but that was about it. To Corrie's disappointment, Roy had grown restless with retirement. His moods had reflected his boredom, and he was frequently cantankerous. Everything changed when he decided to rent office space and hang out his shingle as a private investigator. It was a decision Corrie had encouraged. Soon her husband was busy and looking forward to each day. He took on the cases that suited him and turned down those that didn't. Corrie was proud of Roy's skills, proud of his success and the way he cared about his clients. Never did it occur to her, or apparently to Roy, that one day he'd be solving his own mystery. "You could be in danger," Corrie murmured, letting her anxiety show. She refused to hide her feelings, refused to pretend all was well when it wasn't. Roy shrugged.
"I doubt I'm in jeopardy. If anyone wanted to do me harm, they would have done so before now."
"How can you say that?" she asked irritably. "Bob was followed, and we both know it wasn't Bob they were interested in. He was driving your car. They thought they were following you." Bob Belden, together with his wife Peggy, was the owner of the local bed and breakfast, Time and Tide. Bob had borrowed Roy's car and phoned in a near panic, sure he was being followed. Roy had advised him to drive immediately to the sheriff's office. As soon as Bob had pulled into the station, the tale had left him. Only later did Roy and Corrie figure it out. Whoever had shadowed Bob had assumed it was Roy driving.
"The letter said we're in no danger,"
her husband reminded her. "Of course,"